The drama surrounding Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever has officially reached another level, and this time it feels bigger than basketball itself. What started as quiet conversations about offensive adjustments and coaching philosophy has now exploded into one of the most emotional debates the WNBA has seen in years. Fans are no longer just discussing wins and losses. They are talking about identity, power, influence, television ratings, superstar control, and whether the most important player in women's basketball is finally pushing back against a system that threatens to limit what made her a phenomenon in the first place. The wildest part is that none of this came from a screaming press conference or some dramatic public feud. There was no viral locker room confrontation, no angry social media rant. Instead, the entire sports world became obsessed with a few calm comments during an interview that many fans interpreted as a quiet warning shot aimed directly at the growing movement to reshape the Fever offense. And once people started connecting the dots, the conversation completely spiraled. Over the past few weeks, there has been growing discussion surrounding the idea of moving Clark off the ball more often and creating a more balanced offensive system. On paper, that sounds perfectly reasonable. Coaches have always preached ball movement, spacing, structure, and shared responsibility. Championship teams are usually built on chemistry rather than one player dominating every possession. But the second fans heard the possibility of Clark spending more time away from the ball, the backlash was immediate and overwhelming. Because to millions of people watching this league, Caitlin Clark is not viewed like a normal superstar anymore. She is viewed as the engine that completely transformed the WNBA's visibility. Fans are not tuning in to watch her stand quietly in the corner waiting for a catch-and-shoot opportunity. They want the chaos. They want the impossible transition passes that somehow thread through three defenders. They want the deep logo threes that make arenas explode before the ball even touches the rim. They want the fast-paced unpredictability that turned regular season WNBA games into must-watch national events almost overnight. That style is exactly what made Clark different from every other rising star entering the league. She didn't just score points. She created moments, viral moments, the kind that dominated social media within seconds, the kind that dragged casual sports fans into women's basketball whether they planned to watch or not. Every game suddenly felt electric because nobody knew what ridiculous play Clark might attempt next. And now fans fear that trying to force her into a slower, more controlled system could accidentally erase the very thing that made her special. What intensified everything was an interview that seemed harmless on the surface. Clark remained calm, respectful, and professional throughout the conversation. There was no direct criticism of Stephanie White or the coaching staff. But one quote immediately grabbed the internet's attention. Clark explained that if she does not play basketball, none of the attention or opportunities surrounding her would exist. To some people, it sounded like a standard superstar response about staying focused on the game. But Fever fans instantly interpreted it differently. Many believed Clark was subtly defending the style of basketball that built her empire. A style based on freedom, creativity, aggression, and complete offensive control. Fans began dissecting every sentence from the interview, especially when Clark talked about how people now love turning on women's basketball because of how exciting and entertaining the game has become. Online speculation exploded almost immediately. People started wondering whether she was quietly reminding everyone exactly why fans fell in love with the league in the first place. And honestly, it is difficult to ignore the logic behind those reactions. Clark's rise was not built on safe basketball. It was built on fearless basketball. Her game thrives in chaos. Defenses panic when she pushes the pace. Entire defensive schemes collapse the second she crosses half court because her shooting range forces opponents to guard areas nobody else consistently attacks. Players like that rarely fit perfectly inside traditional systems because their creativity becomes the system itself. That is what makes the pressure surrounding Indiana so dangerous heading into this season. Expectations are no longer realistic. This is not some rebuilding franchise quietly developing young talent anymore. Every Fever game now feels like a nationally televised event. Every offensive adjustment becomes a debate show topic. Every cold shooting night turns into a social media war. And if the team struggles early while experimenting with a more balanced system, the criticism surrounding Stephanie White could become overwhelming almost instantly. The situation becomes even more intense once you look beyond basketball and into the business side of Clark's influence. At this point, Caitlin Clark is operating in a completely different universe financially compared to most athletes in the league. Her WNBA salary is tiny compared to the massive endorsement empire surrounding her name. Major brands rushed to attach themselves to Clark because they saw the numbers explode everywhere she went. Television ratings surged. Ticket sales skyrocketed. Merchandise vanished from shelves. Entire arenas changed venues just to accommodate larger crowds when Indiana came to town. Companies like Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, and Xfinity quickly recognized that Clark was not simply becoming a basketball star. She was becoming a cultural force. And when billions of dollars begin flowing into a league because of one athlete's popularity, every coaching decision suddenly feels bigger than sports. That is why fans keep connecting the dots between Clark's style of play and the WNBA's massive media growth. Networks want entertainment. Sponsors want viral highlights. Casual viewers want the version of Clark that launches 30-foot bombs and creates non-stop chaos in transition. They want the spectacle. And even though there is absolutely no evidence that television executives or sponsors influence coaching decisions inside Indiana, fans still believe enormous pressure naturally exists to maximize the league's biggest attraction. What makes the entire situation fascinating is that both sides of the argument actually make sense. Stephanie White likely understands that balanced basketball usually wins championships. Teams become predictable when everything depends on one player creating every possession. Shared scoring, movement, and structure matter during deep playoff runs. History proves that. But at the same time, Caitlin Clark is not a normal player. Generational talents rarely fit neatly into systems because their unpredictability changes the entire geometry of the game itself. And that is the impossible challenge facing Indiana right now. Do you fully unleash Clark's instincts and build the offense entirely around her chaos-driven brilliance? Or do you attempt to create a sustainable long-term championship system that asks everyone to sacrifice touches and responsibilities equally? Because whichever direction the Fever choose, somebody is going to be unhappy. The pressure only intensified once MVP conversations involving other Fever players started circulating online. When discussions emerged about Kelsey Mitchell potentially entering MVP talks, some fans reacted emotionally, believing it minimized Clark's impact on the franchise and the league itself. Clark carried one of the most heavily scrutinized rookie seasons in basketball history, while simultaneously dragging the Fever into relevance and turning every game into national news. Fans feel deeply protective of what she represents because they believe no athlete in recent WNBA history has faced this level of attention, criticism, and expectation all at once. And maybe that is why this story refuses to disappear. It is no longer just about basketball strategy. It is about the future identity of the league itself. The WNBA is now trying to navigate the rise of a generational superstar whose influence extends far beyond the court. Every possession feels magnified because people understand the stakes. If Clark and Indiana dominate while embracing her style completely, the league's popularity could explode to another level entirely. We are talking about MVP races, championships, signature shoes, billion-view highlights, and mainstream sports influence that only a handful of athletes ever achieve. But if the fit between Clark's instincts and Indiana's system becomes awkward or restrictive, the backlash could become enormous. Fans do not want to see the excitement disappear. They do not want to see the unpredictability watered down. They want the version of Caitlin Clark that made arenas shake and forced the entire sports world to finally pay attention to women's basketball right now. The Indiana Fever are entering one of the most pressured seasons in WNBA history, and everyone knows it. Every game will be dissected. This season may end up defining not only her future, but the future direction of the entire league. So now the question becomes impossible to ignore. Should Indiana fully build around Caitlin Clark's chaotic superstar style, or is Stephanie White right to push for a more balanced championship system? And if the Fever struggle early, who will fans blame first? Let me know your thoughts below, because this might become the most closely watched WNBA season we have ever seen. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because the drama surrounding Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever is only getting started.